Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. We got some doors glued up. Part 2 of this series. Let's just get right into it. Here we go. We really had a slow start to the week. The first couple days, Monday, we delivered the rest of those cabinets, got the shop back in order. Tuesday, I had some running around to do, things like that. So we didn't really get the whole entire week to work on the doors, but here we are. So this day I was by myself, Rowdy was not here. I'm messing with that dust collection hose there. Since we put the bandsaw there, we have not run a dedicated line to it yet. So we need to do that. We've just been swapping the hose back and forth between the planer, and it gets really annoying. I need to take the time to get that set up. But what I'm doing here, since I'm by myself, I'm just milling up enough poplar to get me a few staves glued up for rails. Because when you're by yourself, it's a pain milling up a ton of material all alone. So I'm just kind of getting what I need so I can get it glue up in the bag by the end of the day. And basically the same process that we did last week for the stiles. I promise we're going to get to more exciting stuff in this video, like the joinery, even gluing up a couple doors. And here I'm just breaking down. Everything is a little bit longer than it needs to be for my rails. So we have, each door has a 6-inch top rail and a 10-inch bottom rail. And then the stiles got a piece of fir on each end of the stave, where the rails only need one piece of fir because that's very top edge and the bottom edge of the door you're never going to see. And here we go gluing up. And again, these rollers, these glue rollers I got on Amazon are awesome. Only thing is, you better clean it out right away when you're done with your glue up, because if you don't, it's a real pain in the butt to clean. But as long as you do it, right after, it's fine. And they work really good. It spreads a really nice, even glue for glue ups like this, because otherwise this would be a real pain in the butt. So, yep, just more clamps, more glue. Really, really fun, exciting stuff. We have gone through so much glue and done so many glue ups the past 2 weeks. It's like insane. Some nice squeeze out there. And then onto some veneers. And you can see all those cutoffs we have up there, which are perfect. I'm jamming to something there, loser. Yeah, we have plenty of material for our rails from all those cutoffs. And so our bottom rails, we have these 1x12 pieces, which are going to be perfect for the bottom rail. So they can be one piece. We don't have to have a joint in them. So I just get everything ripped down to what it needs to be. And then before we go to the resaw, put a saw curve in the edge of your boards. And this just makes resawing so much easier. The blade tracks right in that groove really well, and it just works really good. It's definitely worth the extra time to take this step, in my opinion, especially for these big, wide rails. So this material is all over the place in thickness. The boards are, some of them are tapered, like that one was tapered. You can see I had to do 2 curves in one end. They're tapered, they're different thicknesses, they're all over the place. So again, that's where this saw curve just helps when you're resawing and makes this process go much, much smoother. And the amount we've used this bandsaw in the last couple weeks, or no, really the last couple months, because even the cabinets we did a lot of resawing for all the cabinet door panels. And this bandsaw has been awesome. I got it, 2 years ago. Really haven't used it a ton until now. We've really put it through its paces, and I'm pretty happy with it. It's just a Grizzly 17-inch bandsaw. I don't even remember the model number, but it's good. It's really good. I also don't have a ton of experience with bandsaws and a ton of bandsaws to compare it to, so take that for what it's worth. And then to the sander. The sander, like I said, we can't put these through the planer because some of the pieces do have knots, because that's the look they're going for. And in the planer, even with the helical head, they just explode. So we got to put everything through the sander first, and it can be tedious to get everything down to the same thickness. And so now I'm picking through this pile of wood to mill up some boards for our door panels. So the door panels are going to be solid, and we're getting them down to 3/4 of an inch. I don't normally only like to remove material from one side of a board. However, we're kind of don't really have much of an option on this. Like I said, all this material varies in thickness. Some of the pieces are way tapered, like this one. Look at the other end of that. And then it goes down to like nothing. So I did the saw curve, and then we resaw everything to 3/4. That way everything is the same thickness. This stuff is not really moving around much after. And this is just going to give us a consistent 3/4 panel with bandsaw marks on the back side, which will look good, but the face of the doors will have this rough sawn finish look. And so this is what we're doing. Now, when it comes to the glue up and the groove that the panel is going to go in, making sure that we allow for expansion and contraction, which we do, and we'll go over that a little bit later in the video. So then I'm just jointing an edge on all my boards, and then we'll go over and we will rip them down, and then we'll glue them up. And this material, the amount of splinters I've been digging out of my hands daily for the last few months that we've been working with this stuff, man, it's really a lot of fun. So there's the largest panel out of all the doors, which I glued up earlier and I didn't film, so just taking it out of clamps, but that's the largest one. The door overall is 42 inches, and that panel is 31 inches wide. And that panel did have a little bit of a cup to it, but I'm not too concerned about it. When it goes in the door, it is not going to bow the stiles or rails or anything like that. It can flex pretty easy into the grooves. So using regular biscuits for this glue up, just for alignment, give it some extra strength. And I'm not putting a ton of glue on these boards when I glue them up. Obviously gluing all the biscuits in, getting a little bit of glue on the edge, but I'm not trying to deal with a ton of squeeze out here because it's a pain in the butt to clean it out of all that rough sawn material, because I can't let it get into there, because I can't really sand it all the way out and sand it smooth, because when they go to put finish on this, that glue will pop right out. So yeah, there's the panel, and we'll leave that for later on. Rails came out of clamps, or the staves for the rails, so we'll flatten these things out. There's a top rail. Then to the planer. Plane these down to uniform thickness. Doing the one-man planer dance. And then back to the sander. This is just like rinse and repeat on all this stuff, guys. Just one step at a time. Rip everything down. I am ripping my rails. They're 1/4 inch oversized right now, so that after they come out of the bag, I can rip them down to their final width. And then again, 1/8 inch round over on the face of all my veneers, and this is to prevent the bag from puncturing, and then we can glue these things up. And again, the rails are long, so I put the veneer on and just throw a brad nail in the end, and those get cut off afterwards. the tricky thing working with this material, and as we're kind of moving along in this process, overcoming different challenges that arise because this material needs to be rough on the face, we obviously cannot mill the face. So when we resaw this stuff, even after it comes out of the resaw, because it's not flat, the veneers are not a consistent thickness all the time. And when we put them in the sander, even the sander doesn't push the veneer completely flat and come out uniform thickness all the way across, especially on these wider rails. So our veneers, some of them had a higher spot in the middle than they do on the ends. There we are. We took the platen out of the bag to clean it, and Rowdy is back. Here I'm setting up the shaper to run the panels on. But anyway, back to the veneers. So the veneers, when we would take the flattest one and put it at the bottom of our glue up going into the bag, and then if one had a little bit of a high spot in the middle, we'd put that on the back. So the vacuum bag would suck the stave down to our flatter veneer, and then when it came out, that would be the face, the flatter side. And if the back side had a little bit of a high spot in the middle, that's okay. We just needed a flat surface, especially for when we're running our grooves and cutting our tenons on the rails. And you'll see why and how we overcome this when we get later on in the video. So while I'm doing all this stuff, Rowdy's milling up material for more rails. I'm taking my panels out of clamps and getting them cut down to size. And that big panel had a little bit of a cup in it in the middle, but again, I'm not concerned about it. It'll be fine. And so time for some joinery. And after much thought of how to do this, because I don't have the shaper cutters for big rails like this, we decided to use the dado stack. This is an Amana tool. It's a really nice dado stack. So we're going to run the groove, and we're going to cut the tenons on the rails with the dado stack. I'll just get my insert plate there, sitting nice and flat. Rowdy's getting the rails that we have finished, cut down to size. And so another reason for using the dado stack is we need the shaper set up for the panels because we don't have all the panels done at once. There's a few of them every day getting done, so we need to run those. And so I don't want to keep taking apart the shaper, and so the dado stack is the next best thing. So here we go, running the groove on some of the rails, and you can even see what I'm talking about on some of those rails where there's a high spot in the middle. Now that's the back. And so we're running our face, which is the flat side, up against the fence, and we get all of our stiles and rails grooved. And now for the cope, and I'm going to use my coping sled. I needed to cut into it a little bit for what we need to do here. So this is a cutoff, it's a scrap piece. Always make yourself some extra so you can run test pieces and get your fit just right. So I'm setting up a few stops with my fence, and this will kind of make more, it's going to be kind of hard to explain. You'll kind of just have to see it in action to be able to tell what I'm doing. So I make my first cut, my fence is slid to the left into that stop. And so then I realized I need to put a backer piece on to prevent tear out. And I'm not that bright because I'm going to need to change this out for a thicker one later on because it's not as wide as my rail. But this tenoning jig is really sweet. I made this thing years ago and it comes in super handy. So now I'm sliding my fence over to give me my tenon width. And so The dado stack is not going to go all the way through, so I'm using a 1/4 inch spacer. I clamp this stop on, and you'll see, so I'll make a pass, then I'll remove the spacer, slide it over, and then it'll finish the cut. And because my tenon is not in the middle of the rail, it has a 1/2 inch from the face in the front, because my panel's 3/4 and has a rabbet in it, so there's a 1/4 inch offset. So there you can see I remove the spacer, slid it over, and then finish my cut. And my whole thing with this is I didn't want to have to take the rails off the sled once it's clamped in. So I was a little tight there. I needed to make a little adjustment, move my fence over, move my stop over, put the spacer back in, and make the cut. And then we'll see what kind of fit we got. Oh, adding my thicker piece here for my backer. This is just to prevent tear out. And then I screw that in from the inside. But like I was saying, yeah, once I have my piece clamped in the sled, or this tenoning jig, I do not want to have to take it out. And there we go. See a nice fit. So that tenon is a 1/2 inch thick and 3/4 inches long. And then we're going to add some big 14 millimeter by 140 millimeter dominoes in there as well. Alright, so there's my first pass. So you can see, slide the fence over, put the spacer in, make the second pass, slide the fence over, make my third pass. So each cope cut, it obviously takes a little bit, 3 cuts, but it worked really good and it gave me accurate results. It obviously would be much faster to do this in one cut on the shaper, something like that, but I don't have the cutters for this right now. So this is what I came up with. And then here you can see it from the other side. So I was just going from right to left and then from left to right. So there's the first cut. Put the spacer in. Second cut. Slide it over. Third cut. And one more time, because why not? And I checked this thing over and over for square, making sure my tenoning jig was square at a 90 degrees to the table, and really just wanted to make sure, after all the work we put into all these parts, you don't want to screw something up here. So back to the shaper. To run a test piece for my panels, I did have to adjust it a little bit, but I do not want a super tight fit for my panels. Okay, I want it to fit in there, not super loose either, but I don't want to have to force it into that groove. And you can see that wider panel's got a little bit of a cup to it, which again, I think for the third time, I'm not worried about it. Get the other one ran. Rowdy's running staves through the planer. We still have our work cut out for us with this job. Everybody's favorite thing to do and favorite thing to watch, sanding. Alright, now the exciting part. After all the hours that have gone into all these parts, we get to do a dry run and assemble this thing and see what it looks like and make sure everything fits and works the way it's supposed to. And so our panels from left to right have a 1/2 inch of room to move. So they have a 1/4 inch on each side. So at the end, you'll see I get my panel centered, and then I brad nail it in the middle of the panel on the back side. And what that does is it allows the panel to move left and right as it needs to. So here, it's just dry run, clamping it up so I can mark for some dominoes. But back to the panel, like I said, this thing, we gave it a 1/2 inch of room to move left and right. So it's into the groove. The groove is 3/4 and it's into the groove 1/2 inch on each side. So there's 1/4 and 1/4. And this will give it plenty of room for expansion and contraction. The climate here is very dry. There aren't big humidity swings and stuff like that. I'm not super concerned about a ton of movement. Now, I'm not saying that it won't move, because it will. Wood moves. But it's not going to move really that much. And if it does, it has the room to do it. So here we go, cutting some dominoes. The top rail's got 3 dominoes on each side, and the bottom rail's got 4. And then it was off to the races for glue up. We're just using regular yellow wood glue here, so we gotta move quick because this does set up fast. And there's a lot of dominoes to put in, and yeah, you just want to make sure you're not taking your sweet time, that you get this stuff done and clamped up as fast as you can. The stiles on everything are about 1 inch long. My rails are cut right to size, so that the stiles run past the rails a little bit, and then they get cut down afterwards. And the glue up went really well. And then I got my straight edge to just check, make sure that my stiles aren't flared up. That's why we kind of had clamps on top and bottom. And we want to just make sure everything is as flat as possible. So then I take everything out of clamps. This was the next day. And the really nice thing about my bench over there is that my bench is nice and flat. So guess what? I can lay my door on it and see how flat it is. And I did do that, or I do that after I cut this, I think. So I've got that hole down up on the front of the saw just to hold that front edge down nice and tight. And I'm just going to trim off the excess stile material, flush everything up. At this point in the project, it is a very good feeling to see these things come together and see a fully assembled door, because for weeks we've just been working on parts. So definitely a rewarding part of the project right here, taking things out of clamps and cutting them down to size. And then this is the giant door. So like I said, this is the largest door of the project, 42 inches wide. And they are pretty heavy, because they are 1 3/4 inch thick, solid wood. Don't stick your fingers near the blade. Use your pencil. And here we go. I'm brad nailing the panel in the back, right in the middle, like I said, so it can move. Got the panel laid on my bench, nice and flat, no warp, no twist, looking good. And then some more sanding, everybody's favorite part. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it. It is an incredible amount of work that has gone into these doors. Now, obviously, we have a bunch more doors to do. This is only 2 of 14, so there's 12 more doors to make, which everything is kind of moving through the whole process. Some of these doors, not all of them are pre-hung doors. There's a few of them that are. They'll get a jamb and get hinged. There's some bypass closet doors. There's also a bunch of barn style doors that just get mounted with, like, you know, the rail above above the door. Like this is the largest door, and this is from going from the kitchen into the pantry. So, and this is a barn style door. So most of the time, this is probably just going to be left open, and you know, if they want to slide it and close it, they can, obviously. But most of the barn style doors are just going to be kind of left open. But next week's video, I'm not going to take you through the whole boring process of milling material and gluing up more staves or gluing veneers in the bag and stuff like that. You've seen enough of that, I'm sure. So we're gonna go over the pre-hung doors, hinging them, all that kind of stuff, getting the doors hung, and then all these doors also get this piece coming down, so it looks like a Z. I'm not even sure what you would call that piece, but like a barn style door. And I'll show you how we mount those and allow for wood movement in the panel, because we do not want to lock that panel in. We're not doing any of the finishing on these. They're doing all the finishing. So we will, the next video, like I said, it'll be probably a shorter video, and we'll show you the last kind of finished details, but we've got our work cut out for us getting the rest of these doors done this week. So in the next video, hopefully we'll be showing you all these doors finished up and ready for delivery. But super fun project. It's nice to be doing something different, you know. Definitely learning a lot with these. There's some things that next time will definitely do differently, and we'll go over that in the next video as well. But fun project. Stoked that we got this one and we're able to do it. So yeah, Patreon. The Patreon is down below if you want to join there. We've got a chat going over there with everybody who's a member, and it's kind of just a good vibe going on over there. So it's a great way to support the channel as well. Also, you can go to my website, get some merch, a hat, a shirt, something, a beanie, a hoodie, and that helps support the channel as well. But that's all I got. That's all we got for you today. We'll see you next week on the next video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.